So what we're currently covering is on page 68 and 69, and then on page 70 of formatting and scientific notation. You guys probably won't need to memorize all of this stuff because in order to memorize all of Python is impossible. So what you need to do is you got to be good at, okay, I know with formatting I can do a bunch of stuff. I think I can do scientific notation. I can do this, that. I need to go to a resource, your book. I know in Python I can do this. I wonder if I can do it this way in Python. So Googling stuff, I highly recommend you Google stuff before you ask me questions. So what does this error mean? Throw it up on Google and see what happens. Python, whatever error, and they may be able to give you a better example. You can ask your neighbor, what's this mean? How do I do this? Or you can ask me. But I don't want you guys to just be like, I have an error, Mr. Stolter. And then you wait 5 minutes because I'm helping someone else or teaching or whatever. Just because there's not enough, like I don't know all of Python. I don't think anyone does, even the creator might, but just be able to Google stuff and figure it out on your own, little things like that, and it will be really, really helpful in the future. So inserting comma separators is at page 70. We went over this. This is where you add. So if this is a bigger number, you add a comma in this part of the code. So what will this now do, Perry?
It'll make it 2 decimals.
Yep, so that's the 2 decimal part right here. What does this comma do? What do you mean separates it? Oh, you looked at this comma?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, Blake, why don't you help her out?
Like, it will add commas in the number.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like 1,000, it would add a comma.
Yep, so it adds the commas in there, so it's a lot easier to read it. And as opposed to going, okay, 1, 2, 3, so that's 1,000. And then 2, 3, so that's 100,000. Okay, so that's about 12 million. This does it for you. Now, what if, another one that's really helpful is if you add, let's see, I believe you do it this way. 12.2.f. Okay, maybe you can't have the comma. You must have to put the comma here. So what does this 12 do? It'll be easier if I add more, bigger number. What do you guys see the difference between this one and that one, minus the commas? What was that? Doesn't tab it, but you're on the right track. It adds spaces. So what it's saying is that this number, however it becomes formatted, will take up 19 spaces. So if you have, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this number takes up 11 spaces. So what it then does is that it fills 8 spaces up before it. And then that way, that's really, really helpful if you want to have like a list of numbers and you want them all to be lined up evenly. So I'd have, print. How do you spell? Is that how you spell your name, Perry?
Yeah.
Yes. Perry. And then we're going to go make that 10 numbers. Shrink that a bit. And then we'll do, oops, Micah, and you a bigger number, but they're all still, oh, it's because this name is different. Never mind, I screwed that up. What you'd want to do is you then want to go \t and Perry \t. So you see how these are now the same They have the same distance, or not the same distance. What am I talking about? They both are basically aligned on the right, right? Just as if you're adding numbers together, now I can easily add these together. Whereas if you don't have this 10, what it would look like is you still have the tab, so that helps, but so now they start at the same spot, but they don't end at the same spot. And if you don't have that \t there at all, oops.
How are you doing that copy?
Oh, so if you just put you see where my mouse cursor is here?
Yeah.
If you just hit enter, it copies that line. And if you highlight something, if you highlight that and then hit enter, it copies just that. Sorry, I feel like I should have told you guys that before. But so this printing is really useful for, there will be problems when I say it has to look exactly like this. And I'll give you an example, and you'll need to do tabs, you'll need to do pad. This is called padding, or is minimum field width. It's also called padding, because it gives you a pad on the number and it helps you figure out, and it just helps with spacing and making things look neat. Do you guys have any questions? Bradley, got questions? No? Enoch? No? All right, cool. Let me bring up formatting. Oh, long lines. So this is actually really helpful. New file. Print. Let's say Mr. Stolter has a story to tell, and he wants to put it all on one line, but now the story is too long.
You might want to use double quotes.
So now it's like, well, now I can't see all of my stuff. So what you can do is you do this. It's not that. You'd actually have to end this. Stop it. End it. End the string and start it again. I didn't put that there. And I think that's right. Save it to classes, intro to Python programming. So as long as I end the line with a slash, it will continue. If I don't do that, if I don't have these slashes. Oh, wait, so they changed it.
How dare they?
So you always end the line with a slash?
You don't have to, apparently.
Ah, that makes it easier.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. I could have sworn you had to. You did in 2.7 and in earlier versions of 3.5. So they must have fixed that recently. All right, well. All right, forget that. So as long as... Now you guys do see what just happened, right? Because it's on a new line, I have to make it a string here, and I have to end this string. Otherwise, when I run it, right, this EOL, what that stands for is end of line. So when you see, and this is very important, you're going to get this error a lot. EOL means something is wrong and your line doesn't actually end. Something is keeping this from, you didn't end something correctly. So whether you're missing an apostrophe, whether you're missing a comma, whether you're missing a bracket or a parenthesis, that's what that EOL will tell you. And then EOF is end of file. So that's if you're manipulating files or importing stuff from a file.
So if you F5 it right now, it'll print properly?
Yep.
Okay, so all you have to do is put a tab or enter the tab?
Just a slash.
Oh, okay.
And let's try to make this a little more.
So let's say, wait, what? I'm saying to go to the second line, you just have to put a,
You just hit enter. So here we go. So this is how it was, right? I hit enter. You see how this now is no longer a string? So you have to go parenthesis, or I'm sorry, apostrophe, apostrophe. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, so with printing something, let's say I want to print, let's go. All right, so we got Micah, we have Enoch, we have Brad, we have, we have Blake, we'll have Joseph, Kayla, Maddie, and Perry. So I could also right here, right, and that helps make it look a little easier. So when I run this, it's going to print your guys' names. Boom, 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 boom. Make sense? Yeah. Now, what you can do is you can add what's called the separator. And anything I put in here, by default, the comma inserts a space. It separates it with the space. So this is the default right here. So you don't have to type this in every time. You can put any string you want in there and it will, instead of the space, put name, or put the stars. I can also put \n. That's going to print everything on a new line. I can do \t, and that tabs it all. I can put.
So you just put comma SEP equals?
Yep, and then it's a string. So if you have a variable, you could even ask the user, because I think depending on the time, we're going to get inputs from the user today. So you can actually ask the user, what do you want it to be? And then they create a variable themselves. You can ask them, what do you want to separate it with? And you can just put X is, let's do a smiley face. And you can put X in here because, now this works because X is a what? What type of data is it? It's a string, and the separator needs to have a string. So when we run it, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face, smiley face. You can also do the end separator, which is at the end of the line, it's going to do something. So end is \n, \n. Hello. Then when we run it, as soon as we get to the end, it then adds 2 new lines and then prints hello. Or 3 new lines, sorry. And this is on page, I skipped around slightly in chapter 2. And this is on 65, 66, and 67. Do you guys have any questions? Maddie, if I wanted to separate these with 2 new lines, what would I type in and where would I type it in?
You would after your list of like variables or strings, you would do a comma and you would type in sep.
Yep.
Then you do an equal to \n \n.
Like that. Uh-oh. Unexpected character after line continuation character. What that means is this right here is the line continuation character. After that, you can't have anything. So I have something after this. How do I fix this right here? Apostrophe. Got to make it a string. Perfect. Boom. How you guys feeling about that? Decent. Now that's something you're going to want to use. You're very quickly you're going to become familiar with the print function and the separating and ending. Just because it's going to be used a lot. Printing is the main way to display information in Python, at least for now. So get used to print is basically what I'm saying. Well, it says you can. Yes, there's other way to display information, but the main one, at least for now, is print. Okay. Last thing, and then we'll get started on our inputs, which is really fun. Then you feel like an actual coder because you're asking the people like, "What's your password?" And they type in a password, and then you can go, "That's not the right password." So it's pretty cool. So X is a string. So right now, let's go with num1 is 12, num2 is. What's the difference between these two numbers?
The second one's a string, the first one's an integer.
Yeah, did we, wait, yes. Okay. Now what if in my coding, and let's go num3 is 12.00. And the third one is what? Float. So what if during my coding I'm timesing something, I'm multiplying it, I'm doing all this math, I'm switching from a string to I ask the user for a number. It comes in as a 12 like a string, and at some point it needs to go to it needs to go to an integer, and you're writing long code and you don't know exactly where that happens. How do you figure out when a variable is what? It's a great question, class. What you can do is you literally write the word type num1. And I'm just going to copy this for speed's sake. Now I don't want this to print anymore. What's the easiest way for me without deleting it? Number sign. Hashtag. How do I do that?
With
F3.
F4.
Shift 3, yes, if I want to do one line at a time. I want to do all 3 lines at once. Do you guys remember that? You press Alt what? Alt 3, yep. Boom, now it's not going to deal with those. So then when I run it, oh, I forgot. Print. I always forget you have to do print in front of type. So this is telling me the class is an integer, a string, and a float. So when you're coding, you can go, oh, it's supposed to be a float one line before. Let me manipulate that. Let me change that real quick. And then, because what you'll have happen is a user will type in a number. You will forget to specify that it needs to be an integer. And by default, it's a string. So then when you're trying to do math, it'll say can't add a string to an integer or can't multiply a string by an integer. And you're like, wait, hang on. Which one's a string, which one's an integer? And you'll have to type out print type number 1, print type number 2, and print type number 3. This is just something to note. This isn't necessarily something you're going to get quizzed on. There's a lot of stuff in here that there's not going to be a quiz like, what's the function that tells you what class is each integer? That's just something that you'll want to know. Again, use this, and it's just going to help with coding in general. I'll tell you, I'll go, do you remember the type function? No? All right, well, look it up in the book real quick. Because you'll learn it better if you look it up and then read it and type it, as opposed to me just telling you type this word type. So we have, oh, wait, what time? So if it's 2:15 and then 2:10, 45-minute class. Oh, I think we get out at 1:20, so I got 17 more minutes. Okay, so now this is the fun thing. This is fun for anyone who's coding. So, what? So X is, so we'll do user name is, what? What?
Super user do.
Oh, sudo, sure.
Wait, we can't?
Yeah. Okay, so what you're gonna do now, you guys can do this in either the console or the shell. I'm doing it in the shell so I don't have to run it each and every single time because I'm lazy. But so username, the way you do, when you're typing, you're inputting stuff to the computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we want is we want to make this an input. So in here is your prompt that tells the user what they want to type in. So you type, what is your name, question mark. And what you'll want to do is you'll almost always want to add a space after that. Because if you don't, see how it's right up next to it? It's not the best written code. So you want to do the space, and then that looks just a little neater.
And you can pop the user.
And now the user name is equal to Zach. So print hello, comma. You can type in sudo, but it's just a string. You can't actually sudo is not a command, I don't think. No. Hello, username. Period. How are you? So this is an issue. I don't want that space there.
Get rid of the comma.
But now when I run it, I'm getting an error. Do you guys remember how to concatenate strings together?
Commas.
Joseph, do you remember? It's not a comma.
Is it a
Period.
plus sign?
It's a, yeah, plus sign.
But can't use a comma?
If I use the comma, Brad, take a look. I have this space here, and I really don't want that because it makes it look like I don't know how to code.
What if you put it after the period?
If I put what after the period?
Comma.
So like here,
Yeah.
I have to have something in between this. So I have to have something in between this data type, this variable, and the string. So now when we run it, this is string concatenation. You guys remember with string concatenation, you don't have spaces. It takes the end of this string and the start of the next string and puts them right next to each other. There is no space. There is no personal space. Right? Kind of like with a cat, you know how a cat just kind of rubs up against you. There's no personal space. That's what happens with string concatenation. No personal space.
Cats have never heard of it.
No, they haven't. They just get right in your face and they'll pet me.
That's why dogs.
So let's see.
True.
How do you guys feeling right now?
A-okay.
Hey, okay. Now what if I want to add numbers together? So let's go. Wage is input. What is your pay? Not Patty. What is my pay? Let's go 100.
Sure, no.
Hours is input. How much do you work? Let's say I work 40 hours a week, and we want total pay to equal wage times hours.
Wait, how do you make it divide like half and half again?
What make what?
One being the shell and one being like the other one.
You drag it to the side.
So you just drag it like this, and you hold it, and it does side by side. I don't do that because a lot of then I only have half the width of the screen to type in, and I hate that. So, so what does this say? Type error can't multiply sequence by non-integer type string. Whoa.
That means the numbers they typed in is a string.
Exactly. I'm trying to multiply strings together. Can I multiply a word by a word?
How much do you
Oh.
work?
If the word
Oh, okay, you know what? No.
Right? I want these to be numbers. So I want my wage. I want this to be a float. Right? And so all you do, just as if we were making this, just as if we were making 12 a float, parenthesis, either the number or the string, just like what we were doing up here. Or you can either type that in or that. We're doing float, and then this is going to be a string, and then it's it changes it from a string version of a number to the float number of or float version of a number. So when I click, what is your pay? Let's go $50.47. Now my wage is $50.47. Then when I do my hours, depending on what you're trying to calculate, it's almost always better to do a float at the beginning and then at the very end round it to an integer, because if you make it like this, an integer, let's say I worked 35.75 hours. Oh, you get an error. I forgot about that. So if you do that, you get an error saying I can't do for an integer. It has to be there can't be a decimal. So what you would do is instead of int, you do float. How much do I work? I work 35.75 hours. And then my total pay. Oh. Total underscore pay. Wow, I make a lot of money.
Wait, what? What is that? Wait.
So here I will do, just so there's not as many. So you can ignore that. So what I want you guys to do, you guys have about 9 minutes left. Just a little review of this. What I want you guys to do is write some code in the console that asks for the person's name, right? Goes hello name, so it should display hello
How do you do it in the console?
Blake.
Hi.
You are paid
Big bucks.
$10.56 an hour and work 35 in a week. Your hang on.
Hello, boy.
But how do you
You're paid $10. Hey, that's above me.
Oops. So what I want you guys to do is this is what I wanted to output. Uh, 1056 times 3567. Oh, hang on, I hit the wrong. 35.67 times 10 point. Is
How do you input something in console? Like, how do you say, cause you say like, what is your name in console, and then in a shell, you just type it.
mm-hmm.
Wait, could you
Show up
put
there.
$sign total pay and have it do it automatically for you?
Mm-mm. Not. I don't think so.
Wait, can you keep it triple quotes, then put total pay, so then
No.
print